Well, welcome to the Kristi Jones Show, where it's all about living your life to the fullest. I'm a life coach, speaker, and business owner in multifamily real estate, and I've had wild success in multifamily housing for over 25 years now. I am so passionate about helping others merge their success and lead a fulfilling life, and I bring it all together right here on this podcast. So join me and let's get started to live your life to the fullest. Hey, my friend, welcome back to the podcast. I'm really glad you're here hanging out with me today. We are in December, my friend, and that means that we've got a lot on our plate, I am really looking forward to Christmas, and I hope that today finds you well and that you are doing all the things and experiencing all the things that you hoped to do this month. What I want to talk about today on the podcast is what to do if this year didn't quite go like you thought it would. What do we do when things don't go as planned? That's what I want to dive into today. I want to give you the mindset. I want to talk about some frameworks and talk about, you've heard me talk about this before, the micro wins. And we're going to talk about how sometimes we need to pivot or redirect. And I want to give you the tools that you need right now in your toolkit so that you can move forward with purpose. You can, close the year feeling clear and confident and really strong. So let's dive into that today. And this is one you're going to want to probably jot some notes down on. So let's just get into it. Let's talk about what do we do? How do we handle it? How do we get back on track? How do we not lose the motivation and just kind of want to throw our hands up when things don't go as planned for the year? Because in December, it's a really common and normal thing to do to sit back and start looking at, the expectations. That's going to talk about that a little bit later, but maybe the expectations you had for this year, the goals you had set. Maybe it just like you thought by now things would in December look a little differently, personally, professionally, whatever your, vision that you had towards the earlier part of the year. You're just sitting in a place right now where you're like, this really didn't go as planned. I mean, some things did, but I want to normalize the fact that you and I and everyone else on this planet, we all have things that don't work out as we planned. So what do we do now? That's what I want to talk about today. I want to kind of take away, a lot of times there's shame that comes with that or we, hold on to shame or we're embarrassed. And I want to really talk about how to extract the lessons, how to reclaim our power, so we can create that momentum as we move forward. What we don't want to do is get stuck and kind of stagnant in this space of, well, something is not working out the way I thought. I'm really like where I am and where I want to be on this particular goal is the gap is still really wide. So I want to kind of, brush the dust off of, the shame, the discouragement, all those things that like a lot of people don't talk about them, but we all have them. We all experience that. So I want to talk to you today about what to do when your year did not go as planned. How can you step back into your power? How can you step back into the space where you can pull the lessons from this year and not just waller in self-pity on those things. So I want to give you the things that are going to get you moving forward so you don't stay stuck here. And I want to also, again, remind you that I don't want you to feel like, I'm the only one that this is happening to, or I feel like this setback happened to me, but everyone else, they hit the mark on everything and they didn't have the setbacks. That's just not real life. It's not true. And I don't care what you're seeing on somebody's social media. You have to understand that a lot of times things that are shared on whether people have businesses or they're just using social media for personal purposes, that a lot of times these are things that they're sharing the positive things, the things that feel good, the things they're proud of. And as they should. I think there's so much good in that. But we can't lose sight of the fact that like we're human and life is life and things happen and not everything works out exactly like we hoped. So we have to learn how to just one, acknowledge that setbacks and disappointments and unmet goals, that is just part of life. It's just part of being human. And we shouldn't be embarrassed about it or devastated by it. It's just how life goes. So what we have to do is one, never feel alone, okay? Because every human that's here on earth and breathing air right now has something that's not working out quite like they planned, feels like a setback, has having to work through something, having to readjust. It's just life, bottom line. And so we got to toughen up a little bit and realize that that's just how it rolls, okay? What we need to do instead of the disappointment and wallowing in like, oh, it's not working out. This isn't what I had planned. We got to build that resiliency. We have to give ourselves the tools and really work on our ability to overcome, to readjust, to pivot. So I'm going to talk about some of those things today. All right, so let me just dive into it. One of the first things I want to talk about is as high achievers, because I know a lot of people here, whether you're in leadership, whether you're a business owner, whether you are, leading your family, whatever it is, but most people that are tuning into my podcast are top performers, high achievers. They're go-getters in all aspects of their life. So high achievers often hide their misses or don't want to talk about them. So I'm going to uncover that. We're going to talk about it because it's not something that high achievers want to look at sometimes, but it is a fact of life. So if you're looking at your goals right now, let me just call you in. All right. So if this is you, if you're looking at your goals right now and you're thinking, wow, this year did not unfold the way I thought it would. I mean, maybe it did a little bit, or maybe you're just way off on all the things. But if that thought is going through your brain, I want you to know that you're not alone. And also take a breath. You're not behind. You are not behind. So just relax into that a little bit. And we're going to talk about, I'm going to give you some things to really put to work in your own life that's going to get you over the hump and get you through this little, if this is a rough patch for you on feeling like I missed the mark. This year didn't turn out the way I thought it would. We're gonna get all in it. Okay, so hang tight. So first talking point I want to bring up is high achievers hide their misses. They hide their misses. So why do you feel maybe when you're with your friends or hanging out with colleagues, why do you feel like you're behind? Or because nobody's talking about their misses. Now, very few people will. Now, I have found in my experience that it really depends on a person's level of, I like to say, the word that I go to is like self-confidence, but it's more of a self-assuredness that they feel okay talking about and normalizing the things that were, their misses for the year or this month. Normalizing and knowing that that is just part of the process. So the more comfortable, the more far along someone is in their own growth and their comfortability with themselves, they're going to be more apt to talk about those things and not that they're like shouting it out from the rooftops everywhere, but if you're having a conversation with someone and they're sharing the things that, yeah, these things panned out. I hit the mark on these, but I had these other two things that I'm still struggling to figure out. I'm still, figuring out, how to hit those goals. So sometimes it's not that the reason you feel alone is because a lot of people aren't talking about it. And high achievers really don't want to look at that at times. And we don't want to polarize on it. We don't want to focus on it and make it like the sole thing. But just to acknowledge that, like, yeah, it's like nothing is ever going to be 100% of the time. So let me, let me just talk through a few of these things and just listen to me as you're walking, driving, or what have you. So let's think about this. People celebrate their wins publicly, right? But it's very human for people to want to internalize their disappointments privately. And so but did you hear the word I used? Internalize. So we can have disappointments. We all have them. We have things that don't work out, but we can't internalize. We need to process it, and we need to decide what we're going to do. What is our next move going to be? How are we going to extract information from that disappointment? But we can't internalize it in terms of a lot of times people will make it create a label for themselves, and they make it hold so much meaning. And so that's what I want to caution you on. You don't see the goals that everyone has missed. So let me remind you of that too. Oftentimes, when there's that gap of what we're trying to achieve or what we're trying to create, or the goal that you set that you're still far from, we don't always see the pivots that are made in someone's life. So oftentimes, I'm going to dive into this a little more further in the episode, but a lot of times we need to be looking and evaluating of where do I need to pivot? What needs to adjust here? And the detours, right? We don't always hear about the detours that others have been through. So I just wanted to bring that to the surface, that like that's normal. It happens. There's this like false standard sometimes that gets created, and it creates so much unnecessary pressure. So regardless of what you're seeing or what you're just hearing, have you ever had that friend or the coworker that just exaggerates everything? And you're like 80% of that is a huge exaggeration. Maybe they're just a good storyteller. I give them the benefit of the doubt. But, my point is that they're not going to tell you everything. And so you have to be able to realize that the information that you're consuming, whether it's visually or verbally, that you don't have the full story. Everybody has misses. And the key thing is, how do they navigate through those times? And that's what you want to get really good at, because we're all going to have things that don't hit the mark. So and here's the thing. I want you to remember that you didn't fail. The goal was not wrong. Maybe the timing or the strategy or your approach, maybe that's what was a little off. Maybe that's what needs the adjustment. So we have to really take these moments when we feel like, this year has not gone as planned. I am so far away from certain goals that I had set for myself. We need to get in a mindset of reflection without the self-punishment. So you have to get yourself in a place where you can look at the facts of the situation and look at it more objectively, so you can reflect on it, see what we can learn from those things, and not so much take it as an opportunity and a time for self-punishment of, I should have known better. I can't believe I set that goal. I wanted to get in better shape, or I wanted to, improve my health. I wanted to, maybe if you're trying to lose some weight or gain some weight and you didn't hit the mark of whatever that goal was. So you turn it into self-punishment. I wanted that promotion and I got turned down for that promotion this year. I was supposed to, be in charge of a new project by now, and that hasn't happened. I needed to land that new client, and, I didn't get 5 out of 5. I only got 3 out of 5. Whatever that case may be, we need to take the time to reflect on it, see what we can learn from it, figure out what we can change or pivot, and not get in that space of where we're just beating the crap out of ourselves and the self-punishment of I'm not enough, I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough. All the things that sometimes run autopilot in the back of your mind that are really working against you. So, all right, so let's talk about the difference between a detour and a dead end. Okay, big difference here. I chose these two words because we all we can all relate to when we're driving and we hit a dead end street. Like, that's it. I mean, it's like there's houses all around it. The street's done. It's a dead end. And a detour is more when it's more of a pivot. It's more of I was going this direction and now I'm going to hang a left instead of turning right. Think of like when you're in the car and you've got your map going. I mean, who doesn't use a navigation system nowadays, right? I mean, how did we get around without them? I don't know. I've lived long enough that I was driving all over the United States before we had navigation systems, and I clearly don't understand how we did it, even though we did it, but it's so much harder. So let's think about our nav, like when you type it in your phone or you put it in your car and you're listening to the map system tell you where to go. And when you make a wrong turn, it doesn't freak out. It just gives you a detour. It reroutes you, right? And if you're on a dead end and you get down a street and there's literally nowhere to go, then it's a dead end. But the map programs, like they give you a detour. It reroutes you. You're going to get there. So most people assume that delays, when things don't happen as fast as we are wanting, that equals a dead end. I've done this myself in business when something is not coming together or happening as fast as I would like. This is, I've just experienced this year. Then sometimes I can automatically think, well, that's it. That project was not, that's just not going to get off the ground. Thinking it's a dead end. For a hot second, I will think that. And sometimes I actually have to sleep on it. I recently just went through this and something new that I was creating. And then I just feel like that delays, just nothing was going right on this. And I really felt like it meant that it was a dead end, that it was not supposed to happen. And that's just not true. That's just not true. In my experience, like this thing I'm talking about this month, which was a business project, I just had to sleep on it. I had to take a couple nights and step away from all the thoughts and the planning and the ideas that were going on in my head. And I just had to sleep on it a couple nights because I was tired, I was exhausted. I was like I was pushing instead of allowing. I was pushing instead of allowing. So once I felt better and I realized, no, this is just a detour. I just have to readjust this a little bit. Sorry, my microphone just like totally fell over. So if you got a big bang sound in the recording, that was the microphone. It just fell. So detours build your capacity. Look at it that way. Detours build wisdom. Detours give you the opportunity to develop new skills. And these new skills often are what we need for what's coming next. So we have to reframe how we look at these delays. Delays are not dead ends. Delays often are detours, these opportunities to, maybe we use the language of we have to pivot, we have to adjust some things, but it builds capacity, it builds your wisdom, and it gives you the opportunity to build new skills that you are going to need for what is coming next. So the only dead end, truly, is when quitting emotionally before we get to the finish line. Emotionally, we just are like tapping out. And that's just like the dead end before you've even got it to the finish line. And I'll go back to my example of when you're driving using the navigation or Waze. It doesn't freak out when you miss an exit and you're going down the freeway. The alarms don't sound, the lights don't start flashing. It simply recalculates. It simply recalculates. And you can do that exact same thing. So when you are in this scenario, I want you to think of the navigation system in your car or on your phone. And when you miss an exit on a freeway, it doesn't like flip out, have a fit, cry, lose 2 days of sleep, all the things. It just recalibrates. It just recalculates. It gets the new path. So that's exactly that metaphor, that's exactly how I want you thinking in this process. So let's talk about December right now. In all your coming and going from all the things that you've got going on this month. And I want you to think about your December pivot. And this is specifically has to do with the things that haven't happened yet. The goals that you had set for this year that you're just like, things haven't worked out this year the way I thought they would. If that, whatever that is for you, I want you to think, how can I take this month and do some pivots? So let me give you a framework of how to look through this lens so you can apply this to your life. So I've got 3 questions that you could be asking yourself. The first one is, what mattered most this year? Ask yourself what mattered most this year. Was it actually added value? Was it added peace, joy, added growth? And then what were the unexpected blessings or breakthroughs? And this falls under that category of what mattered most to me this year. Maybe it was some unexpected blessings, some unexpected breakthroughs. And then when you're considering what mattered most this year, is it worth carrying that into 2026? Second thing, in what I call the December pivot, this framework, the second thought point is ask yourself, what derailed me this year? And then what did it teach me? So what derailed me and what did it teach me? Identify those distractions. Identify the challenges. I always say clarity is everything. And when we don't take the time to get clear, it's really hard to readjust, to pivot, to make the detour that we need to make so that we can hit the goal, create the product that we're wanting, whatever that is, whatever it is that you're saying right now that this year did not turn out the way I had hoped. Gosh, I'm still so far off from that goal. This is what I'm wanting you to apply to that. Okay. So you can take this time, the rest of December, and figure out your pivot, figure out your adjustments. So it's the December pivot framework. So identify the distractions, think about the challenges, the curveballs that came your way. I want you to identify those. So what derailed me and what did it teach me? Reframe each one of your distractions, each of your challenges, each of those curveballs that came like racing around the corner that you were like, oh my God, I did not see this coming. What did each one of them teach you? Find the lesson. These challenges, these setbacks, the curveballs in life, my friend, this is the training ground for you and I. This is the training ground. This is where we learn. This is where we grow. This is where we develop our skills. Think about, have you ever noticed how maybe go back, 5, 10 years or longer in your life, and the things that challenged you then, they probably don't really challenge you now. Things that would have happened 5, 10, 20 years ago that you would have saw is a total curveball. I did not see this coming. This curveball just came out of nowhere and it would just derail you. Think about that same thing happening now and you almost laugh. You're like, no, I mean, I wouldn't want that, but I would know how to work through that. I wouldn't really consider that so much of a setback or so much of a distraction at this point in my life. Why? Because when you went through that initially, that distraction, the challenge, the curveball, you learned that was your training ground. You learned how to navigate that. That's how we become more resilient, more skillful. So what we get tossed our way are new distractions, new challenges, new curveballs. But that is giving you the opportunity to become even better and to reframe, to learn a different way to navigate that rocky ground. So always look at things. I do this and I coach my clients to consider this for themselves. that this happened for me and not to me. When we automatically go to this happened to me, it is such a victim way of looking at things, that this is happening to me. And, I've given all my power over to the situation or to another person. And instead, this happened, this curveball, this challenge, this happened for me. Both of those hold two entirely different energies. So when you yourself say, for your situation, this happened for me, you feel so different. You feel it doesn't change the situation, but your energy and how you show up entirely different than thinking that this curveball, it happened to me. This distraction, it came to me. It happened to me. Two totally different energies. But this is just an absolute framework that you have to look at your situation with what's happening for you instead of what's happening to you. So you get to decide that. You get to decide that. And then also, what am I choosing? Third question I want you to ask yourself for the December pivot is, what am I choosing on purpose for these next 3 weeks of the month? This, my friend, this is where the adjustment, the pivot begins to happen. Not what am I fixing? No, we're not going into fixing mode. But what am I choosing? What am I choosing? Example, are you going to choose clarity over the chaos? Maybe you've got some relationship issues. Are you going to keep buying into the chaos? Are you going to keep just actively stepping into that? Or are you going to choose clarity? Are you going to choose structure, maybe for your day or your week? Or are you going to continue to choose the spiraling chaos, unorganization, just taking things as they come and winging it? Consistency, are you going to choose that over perfection? Consistency, are you going to start choosing that more instead of trying to just everything be perfect? I encourage you to choose the consistency. That's going to help you so much. Are you going to choose rest over feeling burned out? My friend, if you're just exhausted and depleted and burned out, you cannot make traction, progress on the goals that you have. So maybe you need to be choosing rest over feeling burned out. And then another suggestion I would have is choosing gratitude over that comparison. So over these next 3 weeks, what are you choosing on purpose? Get very clear on that. A pivot is very powerful because a pivot is a decision. It is not a reaction. That is why there is so much power in the pivot, in the adjustment. And this time of year is an excellent time for you to be evaluating that for yourself. Next thing I want to talk about, I call it emotional recovery for high achievers. This is where this is the human side of it, okay? So perfectionism can often turn into disappointment for high achievers. Unmet goals, that can feel like shame. We can carry shame about it. And it just begins to start that vicious spiral. There's a difference between reflection and rumination. Reflection, so if you're reflecting on the things for this year or the unmet goals, the things that didn't pan out the way you had thought it would, you're reflecting on the setbacks or the challenges or the curveballs that came your way. That is a definite different way of showing up and the energy behind that versus ruminating over them. Ruminating is like just playing that it's on autoplay in your brain over and over and over. And reflection has more to do with the questions that I had just taken you through about what to be asking yourself. That's more in the reflective side of things. And when you ruminate, it's just like a wash and repeat cycle. So not productive at all and not helpful. So to reset, like emotionally, the human aspect of this, I've talked about these things many times, but I'm just going to revisit it because we got to hear that we've got to hear this over and over before it really sinks in. But to reset emotionally, things like movement, breathing techniques, grounding yourself, calming that nervous system, your quiet time, and simplifying your day, simplifying your schedule, simplifying your life at times. So these are all ways to really help yourself reset emotionally. High achievers and top performers are really good at recovery. And even if you look at this from from an athlete standpoint, the best athletes understand the importance of recovery time. They understand the components that go into that, and that they cannot perform at their top level if they're not doing XYZ to aid in their recovery. So the exact same thing here for top performers and high achievers. The emotional recovery from the setbacks, from the things that didn't work out, from, the thing that's not, you look at this year and you're like, this is not how I thought it would be right now. There's a gap between where I am, where I wanted to be, what I wanted to create, the goal I wanted to achieve. And I just want you to settle in and realize that your ability to recover healthy in a healthy way and quickly is really what's going to set you apart from average to top performer. So things go back to those basics when emotionally, when you're trying to recover from a disappointment, movement, breathing, simplifying your schedule, quiet time. Go back to the basics on that. High performers do not avoid setbacks. Let me say that again. High performers don't avoid setbacks. The difference is they recover quicker. So build things into your routine, into your day, into your week that allow you to recover quicker. Let's go into micro wins. I've talked about micro wins before, and I'm going to wrap it up with this. I want to give you some actionable steps that you can really put to work immediately because I'm a big believer in that. We learn and then we need to do. We need to act. That's where the rubber meets the road. That's where we get the traction, right? We've got to put things into action. But I want to talk about micro wins because these build momentum faster and for the big, more than like big dramatic changes. So micro wins, focus in on those. So here's the to-do from this episode and what I would encourage you to lean into so that you can use this time this month for the things that didn't quite work out like you wanted. You can use the time this month to like re-strategize, refresh, and get back to where you feel like you can move forward, pivot, readjust, reflect, learn all the things. But I want you to not spiral and stay here. I want you to be able to move forward and go into the next month feeling clear, confident, and empowered. So here's some things choose one of these things for the week. If you want to go big, then choose one thing each week. Okay. So let me run through my list here. One habit to honor, one habit for yourself that you will honor. Physical space, I've talked about that a lot. And again, this is back to micro wins, right? We need to build momentum on the smaller wins. So I've talked about like our physical space where we spend our time, and when it's messy and chaotic and a mess, and your car's a mess, your desk's a mess, your room's a mess, your house is a destruction zone. No, it's not setting you up for quick recovery. It's not setting you up for these micro wins. It is cluttering your brain. It's just emotionally, it's just not good. So choose one room or one space to clear, to clean, so you can reset. If that's too overwhelming, pick a corner, pick a bookshelf, something like that. Clear your physical space. It needs to feel good. It needs to feel orderly. It cannot be chaotic. Oftentimes, our outside surroundings are a result of what's going on inside. So, the chaotic going on around you, pick something, break it down as small as you need to, depending on what your capacity is right now. Clean it, organize it, get it set to where it is clean and it clears space. Find one commitment this week that you will follow through on. One commitment, the thing you've been putting off. Probably have 5 or 6 things you've been putting off. Pick one of those and follow through on it. Choose one conversation that's been an ongoing conversation with somebody in your life that is not you need to close, you need to like bring some closure to the conversation. Whoever, whatever conversation that is, pick one. A lot of times we all have a lot of open conversations of things we need, even, and it doesn't have to be like heavy and dramatic and all of that. It might be that invitation to an end of the year get together, or maybe your friends have been like, hey, let's plan a trip, a weekend. Let's do a girls' weekend. Let's do a guys' weekend in March. We need to start planning that now. And you haven't like committed or said yes or no. You're just, maybe it's something like that. But take a conversation and close it out. Like something that's like open and not decided on, pick one and close it out. That's a micro win. One decision, make one decision that you've been needing to make it, close it out. That's a micro win. So a lot of times I talk about like our brain has all these buckets, right? We have all these buckets and they're like half full, meaning that we have all these different thoughts or things to do and we're carrying them around in buckets in our brain. You need to empty one of the buckets. So make a decision, lighten your mental load. That is a micro win. When you do these micro wins, you are building your confidence. You are building momentum. Every small promise that you keep to yourself, so everything that you say, I'm going to do that, and then you actually do, that is a deposit in your confidence account for next year. Let me say that again. Even the small, I'm calling these micro wins. Every small promise that you keep for yourself is a deposit into your confidence. We'll call it your confidence account for next year. Start that now. Start that right now. And I want to encourage you, I'm going to just wrap this up with, I want to encourage you to reframe. Reframe the year for yourself. This year did not happen to you, it happened for you. Another way to reframe this is that I'm going to walk into 2026 with clarity. And the reason I'm walking into 2026 with clarity is because of what 2025 gave me. And I mean the good, the bad, the hard, the easy, all of it. And then this is your moment right now in this month. This is your moment to pivot, to readjust with power, not to punish yourself. So take those 3 thoughts and reframe how you are looking at this year. I really want you to be able to move forward with that clarity and that confidence and that purpose. So close the gap where you wanted to be and where on any given goal that you have, any given topic in your life, in a relationship, in your business, doesn't matter. You can apply everything that I've shared today. You can apply it to that scenario. All right, my friends, I am so glad that you are here hanging out with me. We are going to just have a fabulous holiday, December. It's going to be great. It's going to it always goes by super fast. So know that. We look up and it's going to be January. And speaking of January, I want to invite you that I have a brand new thing that is rolling out in my inner circle. And so if you are craving guidance, if you're needing more clarity heading into and moving through next year, I want you to get on my VIP list for the Flourishing Edge Inner Circle. I've got some super cool things coming up in that. I am just like pulled the lid off on this and have restructured and the way that I'm doing it. And I've got basically 2 levels of mentorship inside this program. Very excited. So if you want to know more, if you're like, hey, that sounds interesting. Yes, I would want to, identify my habits and know your leadership framework and, have my own transformation, then you want to be a part of this. So there'll be a link down below that you will be able to follow that to get more information. So until next week, my friend, I just wish you the best week in December. Go get your micro wins, make it happen, and let's just totally reframe the things that we need to be looking at and pivoting on and learning from. Life happens for us. It does not happen to us. All right, my friend, I will see you here next week on the podcast. Until then, have a fabulous week. I want to thank you for tuning in today to the podcast, and I hope you've enjoyed the conversation and all the info that's been shared today. And I hope you've come away with a few ideas on how to make the most out of it for your life. If you loved this episode, be sure to share it with your friends and family. And also make sure you subscribe to the podcast and tap that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. Also, it would mean the absolute world to me if you would leave a podcast review. So until next time, my friend, keep flourishing and thriving and live your life to the